me, and I have my guest Sharon Hinton on with me. And Tuesday is election day, people. This Tuesday, September the 1st, is election day, and we're hoping that people will understand that this is a very important election. This is midterms. How you doing, Sharon?
Good morning, my sister. Good morning, Renee, and good morning, Pastor Bruce Wall. How is everyone?
Good morning.
Yes. So, how you doing, Sharon?
I'm good. I'm a little tired of, I'll say I'm not tired physically, but tired of people's excuses about not voting. I mean, our people, and I'm gonna put Pastor Wall in here, although he's eternally young. We're the generation that actually fought for the right to vote. And so we remember when we didn't have this, where you could just walk in. I
How
mean,
you
today is
doing, Sharon?
good morning, my sister. Good morning. Tomorrow is today actually is the last early voting day. So you can
Mhm.
actually go down and you can vote for the primary. The primary is Tuesday, September 1st. There's no excuse, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can look it up, boston.gov, and find out where you're supposed to be voting. The registration for this primary is already done, it's finished. But you can register after for the actual election on November 3rd, Tuesday, November 3rd. So if you're not already registered, then you can't vote today at an early voting place or on Tuesday for the primary. But you can actually vote today. There's several locations, and you can look at boston.gov, and then you can also still register so that you can vote November. Hi, Larry. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Um, so yeah, so you can actually vote. There's no excuse. It's not, well, there's an administration that's trying to make it more difficult in terms of mailing in your ballot. But right now you can walk in as long as you're an American citizen, you're 18 years of age and you're registered to vote, you can vote.
Yeah. So, Larry, we're having technical difficulties. I can't be seen this morning.
Okay.
I'm incognito, I guess.
Okay. So, two things. One, Sharon, I did reach back out to you a couple of times. I got your voicemail to follow up on our conversation. So, just
I
want
can hear
to,
you.
yeah, you know what I'm saying. So, when you get a chance, give me a call. The
Yes,
other thing
sir.
is, I was just listening because I said Paula had had another issue. I was actually got off the Zoom with City Councilor Ed Flynn regarding some of the violence in the city and whatnot. But back to the voting piece here. The biggest obstacle that we have is not with Trump and all the. It's what we do to ourselves, the impediments that we put on ourselves. Because the basics we're not even meeting is actually registering and executing our vote, right? So the ones who are really being penalized, in my opinion, are those of us who actually do, because they figured if they can just water that down and get less of those people voting, then mission accomplished, right?
No.
So I think again, the big part is what we're inflicting on ourselves by
All
not
right.
voting. And that's what if it wasn't important, they wouldn't be trying to take it from the few of us that actually participate in the process.
Exactly. I mean, I actually was out there. Ron Bell has a dunk the vote. Um, I was out at Jubilee, which is the largest black church in New England right now, and three services, 7:30, 10, and 12:30, for 2 weekends. And we did an announcement, a weekly announcement. And so we did an announcement to get people ready to register to vote. Then I was out there in the lobby with some of the mothers and some of the young people registering people to vote. And if every single church did that, and actually put some importance on it, and it's not a violation of a 501c3 nonprofit, we would have people register to vote. And then, like you said, Larry, the problem is getting people to actually vote. There are people who are registered to vote, and if they don't understand that, the district attorney, there's only three people running for district attorney. That is going to be decided on Tuesday. The primary is always a lower election day. So
Yeah.
I've heard people say, "Oh, I'm gonna wait till the real election." Well,
Yeah.
all the elections are real elections, and this
Hello.
is very real.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
and to that point, we're up against, right. It's the weekend. Most people don't know. They thinking it's happening after Labor Day, and I've
Yeah.
heard many people say that, Sharon. Well, I'm just going to wait and vote in the general election. vote in everyone. You want your name to be shown seen every time there is an election. Where I live, I vote. I don't care what it is. If it's for dog catcher, I want them to know that I'm interested in who is going to be out there doing that job. Because I pay my taxes for that to take place. But like for instance, like Manlio just had their annual back to school book bag giveaway. They had how close to 4,000 bags, and that was every year it's increased. But the point is that people were lined up before the event even started because it's a fun day. I get that, but I'm like, I would love to see that type of line at the polling
At
because
the
a friend of
voting
mine
polls. Yeah.
at the Shelburne, they went and voted, and they said they got there was no one out there. They went and voted. There was no one inside, and they sat out in their car for about 45 minutes just to see if anyone. And no one showed up in that 45-minute period. And then at the Mildred Ave School, they think it was like 70 people voted for the day last Saturday.
Today there's three locations from 12 o'clock in the afternoon to 8 o'clock tonight. St. Nectarius Greek Orthodox Church, that's on Belgrade Avenue in Roslindale, Florian Hall, which is 55 Howard Street in Dorchester, and the Tobin Community Center, which is 1481 Tremont Street, today from 12 until 8, today, Thursday, the 27th of August. There are three locations, and you don't have to be registered in those locations. Anybody from the city of Boston can go into St. Nectarius Greek Orthodox Church. It's right there. It's on the commuter rail, and it's on the bus lines, and you can go in there. Florian Hall is a little bit more difficult. You kind of got to drive and have a car to be able to get there. But Tobin Gym is right there on the bus line. It's walkable from Roxbury Crossing. And so from 12 to 8 today, this is the early voting day, because there were three of them, right? Saturday, Sunday, and then today. Saturday, Sunday, there was four of them. Tuesday, and then Thursday. And to your point about, people showing up, there was an irregularity in voting. I interviewed on WBCA, which is the same frequency as this, but a different radio station, BNN Media. I interviewed Nick Collins on Monday, and there were irregularities in the voting
Yes.
in his district. His
Hmm.
name wasn't even on the ballot.
Right.
So it's
As if
like,
they
come
as
on.
as if they weren't going to recognize his name not being on the ballot in South Boston.
That
In
doesn't
South
make no
Boston, in
sense.
his district, right?
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Right.
But if you look at how the early voting locations and the schedules are, before it used to be, you would have these, like, they have Saturday and Sunday, they had the different places that you could go vote. There was about 8, 9 of them, and
Mhm.
then on Tuesday, it switched up, 2 or 3 places. Today, the last, I mean, they used to have all these locations every day, but see how they're broken them down.
But
It's
see, not to cut you off, I think that some of that may be by design or just logistics, right? But the problem is we don't prioritize uh,
Right.
what we think is important because if the same situation was that we were going to be giving away turkeys or backpacks or Halloween candy, right, and all of those days people would have it locked in, right,
Yep.
and they would
yeah.
find us, right, because I think what we and you ladies correct me if I'm wrong, we have to get back to educating our folks, not so much just about voting, but what it took for us to have the right to do it. Because I
That's
think
right.
people take for granted, oh, voting, what's the importance of that? A lot of they don't understand the history of it.
They
They
don't
really don't.
realize that we're losing our services. We're losing, I mean,
But I think
everything.
they don't realize the people that died for
Right.
this.
Right.
I don't think they think it's a issue, or
You
a
know, I,
priority.
Uh,
I
that's what I
have to
said.
add that
But it's
Boston
our
City Hall.
ancestors. It's our ancestors that have died for it.
Well, our ancestors, not theirs. Let's be clear. I had to add Boston City Hall is also another location. So to your point,
Yeah.
Priscilla, Saturday and Sunday had Mildred Avenue, the Condon, Elementary at South Boston, the Murphy. The Murphy they have listed, but it wasn't open, which is another irregularity, right? They had Saturday and Sunday early voting location on um, the Richard J. Murphy K through 8 school in Dorchester on Rural Street wasn't open. It was supposed to be open. Then they had the Margarita Muniz Academy, that's Jamaica Plain, another course to college, Hyde Park, Roach Community Center, West Roxbury, Shelburne, Roxbury, Central Library, Copley Square, Jackson Manor, Alston, and Park Street in East Boston. So on Saturday and Sunday, they had it across the city in addition to City Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday, they had the Quincy Community School, Harvard, Kent, and Perkins, right? So you had Chinatown, Charlestown, and Dorchester. That was Tuesday. Now, whatever
Nothing
happened to
on
Monday,
Wednesday
and they didn't have anything on Wednesday, they didn't have anything
or
on
Monday,
Monday or
except for
Friday.
City Hall.
And City Hall was 24th through the 28th. So the City Hall was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, different hours, 9 to 5,
No,
and
no,
then
Sharon,
Tuesday and Thursday, 9 to 4,
do they
9 to
still
8.
have the drop boxes in the city as well?
They still have the drop
Okay.
boxes, but the thing is that if you got, and and so this is what Nick Collins, Senator Collins, and I were talking about. You don't know what the ballot irregularities, the extent of them were. I mean,
Hmm.
if his own district, he didn't have his name on there, and they had Lydia Edwards, who was East Boston,
Yeah.
like, and then the other thing is that in these early voting locations, you have multiple ballots for multiple districts.
Yeah.
So who's to
Mm-hmm.
say, when you go to vote, when everybody goes to vote on Tuesday, you're going to your voting poll location. So they just have the ballot for that, not everybody's
Right.
ballot. So who knows? And they
Right.
just put this new guy in there. The mayor just put this new guy in there. Who's to say that he didn't know what he was doing?
Hmm.
Or it was just, Sabino is usually down there. He's been down there forever at City Hall. But you've got these
Mm-hmm.
other locations. You get trained for a day or for a couple of hours. Then you go
Mm-hmm.
down there and you're an election commissioner or whatever. So you got people across the city of Boston that could I mean, not volunteer, you're getting paid to be able to work in the polls. So if they're not from there, then and they're looking at the ballot, they don't necessarily know unless you know politics that somebody's name is on the ballot or not on the ballot, right?
Well, see, that's why, Sharon. It goes to two things. I want to take away from what you're saying, and I agree on all the points there. Is that one? This is why it's important. Right? I was saying, and I say this all the time, not just on our broadcast on Saturday mornings, but we have to fund stations like this. So we have the funding for we have conversations like this, not just on Thursday mornings or Saturday morning, but every morning, right? Particularly during the week, right? The other thing is that we have to start finding some funding to be able to bring in and employ people, pay them as a full time. We can no longer treat this as a part time or 3 months up to the election and then we get a few dollars to try to get people out there to go knock. We need to be educating people. There's an election every year. Why isn't like the NAACP or some organization? It doesn't have to be them. It could be just the public having an office where we're doing this full time, where that is people's full time job, and bringing in some of our young people so we have a continuum because there's a disconnect between the generation that's behind us and the ones that are here now. When I was coming up, there was always a, a group of people coming in to fill that void. We can't find that now. Minister Don's family reached out to me. They're having a dedication of a sign in front of the mosque on the 12th at 10 o'clock, honoring him. And I say that's all well and good, but how we honor people like Minister Don and those folks is by doing the work that they were doing. The sign isn't going to do it. It's respectful and honoring him for that day. But a lot of kids will walk by, they don't know who Minister Don is and the work put in. And that's what we have to educate folks about. Even the work that you and Priscilla continue to do is that the importance of that work and getting our young people geared up to continue the work because we're not going to be here forever. We're on the back nine of golf using that analogy. We're not on the front end.
I don't know about you, but me and Pastor Wall, we're gonna be here a little bit longer. I want to be 120 years old with legs like Tina Turner. So I'm still working, but still, eventually you got to go. To your point, um,
Yeah.
civics when civics was taken out of the schools, that was the
Yeah.
part of the destruction. And
Yeah.
then you got this administration that wants to destroy everything that has
Right, but let me just
diversity,
interrupt
equity,
you
inclusion.
real quickly, Mr. When you said when civics was taken out of school, it doesn't mean we let them take it out of our home or out of our community. That's what,
Absolutely.
so
Right.
that's
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't, Malcolm X said only a fool allows his enemy to educate his children. And so
Mhm.
we got lazy and traumatized, I think, because all my grandparents were Southerners, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina. Carolina, Alabama. So I knew when they fled in the Great Migration in this country, they were fleeing from racial terror. And so they
Mm,
told us the stories, but there were a lot of stories I didn't hear because it was traumatizing. There are
right.
people there's people now that are disappearing and getting lynched and murdered, and this is right now
Mm-hmm.
in our generation, and
Right,
they're going, and
24
we don't
people
even know what's going on.
recently. But
Mm-hmm.
that's why they want to erase the history and rewrite it as if somehow, and if you don't know, these young people today, they, because of all the AI generate, they don't know what's real and what's fake. So it's hard. This is
Exactly.
why it has to take place in your home and in your community.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like, if you're a Black person, you live in Florida, you can't read about the history of this, the real history of this country, right? They're editing that. So it's up to us. That's why I said we can no longer afford to have this be treated as a part time, an election cycle when we start to go out there, because people are skeptical. It's like when you come and tell them, oh, I'm going to do this for you. But if they get to know you all year round, it's a lot easier when you go in and talk to them about who you think might be the best person to serve their interests when you've been working for that for a long time.
So we have to, and I'm gonna be controversial, Pastor Wall. You know how I am, Priscilla, Larry. You know how I am. Let's be controversial about who's black, right? 71% of Mattapan is Haitian. We've
Mm.
got a largest, District 5 has the largest population of immigrants. And so the conversation has to be about who's black. Now, physically, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. And so there's a consciousness or a lack of consciousness thereof. But we're also dealing with people who this is not their reality. They're not from here. And so we can't expect them, when I say them, I'm not making an us and them in terms of a division, just in terms of historical clarification. There are people coming from countries where the countries are majority black people. And so the oppression and the colonization is not necessarily the United States. It could be France, it could be Britain, it could be Portugal, it could have been Spain. So their reality and historical reality is not the experiences that we have as Black Americans and freedmen in this country. So they're not, and a lot of these people are teachers. I'm a teacher, I'm an educator. And so you're right. I always remember getting this information from home, but then my father was a Black nationalist. He was a Black activist, and we have roots in this country. So we cannot sit up here and assume that someone looks like us and they're us. They're not us. And I've heard some misinformation coming from other people from other countries about us, Black Americans, some of this stuff weak. So there's an education it's still our reality in terms of having to educate, re-educate our children. When my daughter couldn't even walk, I was carrying her into the voting poll. And I had her, when we had those little levers, I'd have her flip the little levers so that she was used to having to go and vote. Right now, people can register to vote at 17. You can't vote until you're
Mm-hmm.
18, but you can
Right.
register to vote now. And so there are mechanisms, just like you, Larry, when high school, there was selected service. You had to automatically register. It should be like that. You automatically register, but still, people need to understand the historical significance and the consequences of not voting. And then people want to complain about who's calling the shots. Well, did you go out and vote? Did you actually participate? And if you didn't like who was running, did you run? I mean, Priscilla actually ran for office. Pastor Wall ran for office. I ran for office. If you don't like what's going on, participate at a higher level. Support somebody. There's 3 district attorneys. Rachel Rollins, who's trying to get back into the spot. Kevin Hayden, who used to work for Rachel Rollins, who's in the spot, and Linda Champion, who used to work for Kevin Hayden as an assistant district attorney. Those are the 3. There are no Republicans. There are no independents. There's no Democratic Socialists. There's no Green Party candidate. Those are the 3. And on September 1st, one of these people is going to become the district attorney.
Right. Well, to your point there, I agree. I said, look, a lot of folks who come from other places have been Americanized, or that generation came here, and a lot of times there were barriers, i.e., some of it being language or just misinformation, right? So we tend to ignore each other. What I have done intentionally is try to reach out to in those communities, even though we didn't understand it. And I find that once you kind of just approach people in a respectful way, I've been able to knock down some of those barriers where I feel like I'm now making inroads in the Cape Verde community, in the Haitian community. I've done that in the Hispanic community as well, because they find that not like they said, all your skin folks aren't your kin folks. We are not going to get this accomplished with just African American people in this country,
That's
because
true.
a lot of them that look like us don't act like us or don't see the urgency. So I've realized that I'm able to bring some of those folks along, because now honestly, a lot of my Haitian brothers and sisters call me asking me who do they think. This is something that I'm like, wow, I feel like there's a milestone going on here where it's based on the relationship, not on the cultural, I'm not even call them differences, but the cultural experiences that we hear, that they trust me as a person and the work that we're doing. Just like like how powerful is this conversation on Boston Praise Radio every morning from 7 to 9, Monday to Friday? People picking this up and saying, wow, we're talking about uniting those who are like-minded. They don't have to be blinded by it, but those who are like-minded, not just that look like us. And we're saying, hey, there's a big tent for that's why you see even in a Democrat and Republican, people are saying, look, I'm tired of just having to choose the lesser of the evils, right? Or then we're saying to people like Priscilla, yourself, and others, well, go out there and run, but we if we have support for you, one, it's going to scare the bejesus out of the other folks who figure that we have figured this out, right? That's this division. While we're fighting with each other, they got enough people in their corner to get them elected, because it doesn't take much, you know,
Really.
to do that. I mean, in the population that we have more people that don't vote that do.
That's
But
right.
so if we continue working on this on a full-time basis, then we will control the power base and educating people and say, look, we're not telling you who to vote for. But like when I know, like when people are asking me about who, that means, that tells me that one, they haven't done their homework,
Right.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can influence. I'm not trying to influence them. I'm saying, look, do your due diligence, right? What is it that you and your family are lacking in your community? Is this person meeting those needs? Are they stepping up to the plate? And a lot of times the answer is no. You know, like people are saying, oh, for instance, for example, is people saying, well, with their Senate race for the first Suffolk, that they may be voting for someone because the mayor is supporting that person. And then when you challenge them on, well, what is that person? What do you know that that person has done prior to the mayor asking them to challenge this person that's done to change your life? They don't have an answer. That should not be. You know, it's like Lindsey Graham's sister saying, I know nothing about, what national,
Right.
but my brother was a senator, so, and
Mm-hmm.
Trump endorsed me, so that's good enough. And sadly,
Mm-hmm.
those folks there saying, this is sufficient.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, that to your point, this, people not doing their homework and not doing their research. I and going back to really the education is in your home, right? So I remember having conversations over dinner, and I still do with my daughter. Like before, it's like she goes in, she's old enough, and but the culture was us discussing what was going on, and then we actually talk about. She'll say, "Mommy, who do you like, and why do you like them?"
Mhm.
There are people that I like who I don't necessarily like their policies. Like I like Mary Wu. I mean, I've known her since before she was actually running for city councilor. I remember her coming around to the churches and the whole thing as a person, but the policies I don't. So I can like somebody, I can like their hair, I can like their family, I can like their mama. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I want to vote for them as an elected
Well,
official. We have to do the homework.
see, Sharon, I'm glad you flagged that, because I get that same thing. Oh, you don't like the mayor. So where does so I'm challenging the policies. I'm challenging my higher tax bills. I'm challenging the lack that our kids are not being educated in the schools. I'm challenging that's what the mayor is tasked with, putting people in those positions to try to alleviate that or make that situation better. I'm not talking about what she looks like or what she
Right,
wears or all that. So to say, I don't know her well enough to not have an opinion about whether I like her or not, right? She's the mayor. I respect that, but
right,
I, like you said, it is policy, and I think people get so caught up on that they're so in love with that person, or that you're attacking them, because they don't look at it through the lens that we do. Is like, no, this is about policy. This is about promises unkept, right? It's not just about dedicating street signs and having bike lanes and because I saw something this morning where it said that Boston is the number one city to work in, and I'm like, for who?
right,
Right.
Right, when T. Michael Thomas and People's Academy has been trying to get a workforce, a program going, and the impediments that are put in place, clearly for some, yes, but for all, no. And that's the piece that I'm trying to change. I don't live in the city, so I could just sit back and say, you know what, my family's doing well. We're in a pretty safe environment. I grew up there, but it's not my problem. But as Minister Don used to say, I sleep somewhere else, but I'm fighting every day because I know it took other people to help me to be able to be in the position I'm in today. And it's very selfish that a lot of us get in a better position and they say, you're on your own.
Well, I mean, and to your point, if you look at Nubian Square, there used to be Dudley Station. There is no that behavior, that
It's,
criminality would never be tolerated anywhere else,
well,
ever.
Sharon, they think that, to your point there, like, and folks will push back if you say, well, things are, changing the name doesn't change the circumstances there.
That's right.
And
It
It's
so
doesn't
that's
barely
change
any
the
it's barely any
policy
Nubians
either.
in Nubian Square anymore. You call it Nubian Square, we're the Nubians.
right. You go through there, you
Right.
see all the construction going on, the new condominiums and whatnot, and you see who's walking out of those doors. It's not the people who grew up there.
Mm-mm.
And you're absolutely right. That should not be tolerated. In that, in fact, there was a shooting down on Roxbury Street last night. And,
Yeah.
but like this year, my big concern, and I don't think it gets enough attention, is, and you're an educator, is that what's the safety plan? What has been placed? Because a lot of this violence, if you track it, has been young people of school age over the summer. They're going back
Yeah.
to school. They're going to be in the neighborhood. What do we have in place to help with that?
So
And
there's a couple of people I want to shout out. Corey McCarthy.
absolutely, I was on a
Um,
panel with him last week.
Yeah,
Yes,
Corey is phenomenal, and
that's
he's director of student support services for Boston Public Schools,
mhm.
and so he had stuff that was going on all summer. Domingos DeRosa, Domingos has been doing this his whole life,
They're
and
overwhelmed.
he still continues to do it. Well,
Mhm.
Brian Worrell is an elected official, and so that's his job to do it. I'm talking about people, and then Corey McCarthy, that's his job to do it. Domingos, his job, he's an entrepreneur. He's got his own property management, landscaping company, but he has grown up here. He takes upon himself to teach um, kids how to swim so
Mhm.
that we don't have drowning incidents. And he was a lifeguard and he trained people lifeguards. I saw him July 4th. He could have been hanging around out July 4th just barbecuing, with his family and everything, but he was down there at Mass and Cass feeding people. I mean,
Mhm.
I watched this man doing this and he ran for mayor and I watched what the system did, ignoring him and making it look like it was a two-person race when it was always four people. So
Right.
we look at the people that actually, the other person is all the coaches that were actually doing sports and stuff. They may be nameless that we know. Bobby Jenkins is one of the people that I know is out there fighting cancer, and he's still coaching, football and basketball. So we've got people on the ground who are doing, and Antonia Edwards, who's got two pieces of legislation up there in the State House for Office of American Freedmen, talking about reparations, the largest wealth transfer that needs to come to our people who work for hundreds of years for free that have not been paid yet. So there are people that we don't necessarily get in the radio or we know them that are doing the work. Mamlio's been doing the work forever. When I was a cop, Mamlio was doing tutoring sessions so that they could walk us through the civil service exam, and we knew the system. So those of us who are educators, and we're all kind of educators at some point, that have taken on the responsibility and not taking selfies. We're doing the work and we're on the ground doing the work. Have to hold, Minyard Culpepper. I was in a to your point about the safety. He's been holding weekly meetings with the critical response team, with the city, with the people and the police to say
Mhm.
these are how many people we've arrested. This is the kind of illegal activity. These are the hot spots in Nubian Square, and this is what's happening. We don't hear about those people necessarily because we're doing the work. We're not standing there saying we're doing the work. We're doing the work. And then those of us, and I know Larry, you do it. I know Priscilla, you do it. We're actually bringing young people into these circles to train them. This is what I did. You have to take this, and now you got AI. So take that and kick it up a notch because we're not going to be here forever. But you need to know this so you're not wasting time and reinventing the hammer. This is how you acquire property. This is how you build wealth. This is generational wealth. My father always had us out there working for ourselves. And it was always about, don't wait for someone to give you a job. Don't wait for somebody to help you make the money. He had me and my brothers out there in Blue Hill Avenue at 8 and 9 years old selling Christmas trees. And we were like, who is this man? How is he my dad? He's got me out here in the cold. And
Mhm.
his thing was, because he was from Philly, he wasn't from here. So he was like, look, here's the deal. For every Christmas tree you sell, you get 30%, you buy what you want. We're like, but Dad, it's Christmas, it's presents, it's gifts. Ain't nobody giving you anything. Get out here and sell these Christmas trees. We're like, oh my goodness, you know? And a lot of the immigrants that are coming from other countries, they got that hustle, they got that drive. And we see our kids, not all of our kids, but some of our kids are taking for granted the things that we had to really hustle for and work for. And I've heard this. I'm gonna put the onus back on parents, black parents. Oh, I don't want my kid to struggle like I did. Why not? Why not? They need to understand that instead of just looking for TikTok and looking for somebody else's wealth, this is how you build your wealth, because you're not going to be a kid for majority of your life. You're going to be an adult. And this is what it takes to be responsible. This is what a true man does, taking care of his family and not living at his mama's house and not paying bills. I mean, you know, I came up through hardcore. And as a teacher, you know, as a black teacher, we have a certain responsibility to teach our kids. I teach all kids, and kids are children, they're sponges. And some of these parents are waiting until these kids get into preschool, but you're wasting the first 5 years of their life to teach
But
them the
Steve, Sharon,
basic things.
let me just you're spot on. But a lot of times you can't teach what you don't know, right? And that's what I'm saying is that, like you and I, you know, you were fortunate. My dad was not in my life, but I had, you know, men who were very good role models for me. Like I said, I bought my first property at 19 because of my mentor, Charlie Dickinson, who had been involved. And matter of fact, his own son had no interest in it, but he didn't just say, well, I'm just going to get it. So we have to get back to that, you know, where we can kind of be surrogates for some of our kids. But also, you know, like I think people, you know, like busing really had a huge effect on. I went through busing through middle school. Two of my older siblings didn't finish school because of busing, right? So
Mm,
they didn't learn enough to teach their kids. And I saw the impact of them not finishing school. So a lot of these homes, because having worked in the schools and going to these homes with problems with the kids, I find out where the real root of the problem is that maybe we need a program where we can educate these parents who have not been educated. We assume because they're at a certain age, they have know things, right? And I just tell you this quick story. What really opened my eyes was being an officer years ago. I remember doing a detail at the animal shelter. And my sister had lost her cat had passed away, and she was very attached to it. So it'd been about a year that had gone by, and I was standing out there. I said, "Oh, you know what? This would be a nice gesture. I'm gonna go in here and adopt this cat for her and take her home and surprise her." I went in there, and to my surprise, in full uniform, they said, "Ah, we got to check you out, make sure that this cat is going to a good home, right? So you can't take that cat home today." Fast forward a week later, I was doing a detail in front of Brigham and Women's, and I saw this young girl rolling out with her baby, and she couldn't have been no more than 14, 15 years old. And so the nurse, I was walked over, and I said to her, I said, "What's required for a young person like that to leave the hospital with a child?" She said, "A car seat."
mm,
Mm,
A car
mm,
seat. That's all they need. If they don't have a car seat, they can't put them in the car. Where they're going, how they're going to be taken care of. And this is a human being. So I say
mhm.
that because there was more emphasis on the protection of that animal. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be protected. Then when I asked about where that 15-year-old, they said they had an address, but there was no verification on whether or not that's where they were actually going. But they said the only thing they're required to have is a car seat.
you
Wow.
know, and
Mm,
so I hear you, and I was just thinking like Dolly Parton, who is beloved by like everybody, no matter the demographics. Her own father, she was born in the 40s. Her own father was illiterate. He couldn't
Yeah, he lived
read
in a
or
one-room
write.
mhm.
shack. Yeah.
But then she
Yeah.
turned around and she started a whole literacy thing, giving out millions of books. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pushing back. I mean, I agree with you totally, but I'm also pushing back on people that are listening to us. If you know that, you know, my father went to jail, he went to prison when I was 2, and then he was murdered when I was 13. He came out when I was 8, and he was murdered when I was 13. Just because you didn't have it is no excuse for you not to get up and go get it.
Exactly. Right.
Mhm. That's
But
true.
and also it's okay. Like I tell people, sometimes you have to build your family outside of your
That's right.
biological family,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
I mean, just think of the relationship that the three of us have, right? We weren't born in the same house.
Mhm.
You know, Sharon, you felt very comfortable calling me last. Hey, bro, I need some help with this, right? I mean, that you know, and we hadn't talked in a while. It wasn't because we had any hostilities or anything. It's just life gets in the way. But we all know what the resources are. That's why I said, like people like Dominic, we have to support them because it doesn't encourage people to say, well, why should I get to go out there and and run for an office when all these people that say that they're going to support me don't even show up to vote. Not even, I'm not asking them financially, but your vote is just as important as that dollar you may give me. But
Mhm.
we see that people vote name recognition and so forth. So this is why I said we have to get some funding, more important for that radio station, Boston Praise Radio and TV, and also to treat this as important as it is as a full time. Look, the Republicans, John Roberts he was a clerk for back in the Ronald Reagan era, and their plan was back then to get the Supreme Court because they know that's where the buck stops, right? And to be able to get that court packed, so no matter what you did at the state or federal level, the courts would make the final decision about women's rights, voting rights, and all of these things, right? But we can change that dynamic when we get enough people who are like-minded, don't have to look like us, and start getting people trained up and getting our young people educated so that when they go in there, they're informed voters, not just voting because someone told them or the mayor has endorsed. Their endorsement should mean nothing other than, oh, that's who you're endorsing. That doesn't
Right.
transfer to me.
Right. I
Mhm.
mean, when we were
Yeah.
out there, Domingo said this. So there's certain neighborhoods, the culture of the neighborhood is to participate. We would go in certain neighborhoods and they would, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. This is to get on the ballot. Oh, yeah, everybody should have a shot. Then other places we would go, it's like, no, I'm too busy. No, I'm not political. No, I'm not doing that. Nah, no, no, no. Or everybody's a crook, so I'm not doing it.
Mhm.
And so, you're right. That, again, this, and thank you, Priscilla, for inviting us into your program to
Yes.
talk about
For
this
taking
because
over your program.
ah,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
what you get
I
for not
can't be
having a
seen
picture.
anyway, but I'm still here.
That so today is an early voting day. Today. Yes, it's a work day, but it's not a school day. Teachers are back, but students are not back. And it does take a person that knows another person. Like Larry, you're so approachable. I love it. And when I called you for help, I said, why is it that I'm always calling you and I need something? Because I love you and you're my brother, right? And so Priscilla, the
Hey,
same thing. We
yes,
see each
right.
other in
Yeah.
spaces. Like I see her and it's what's up, sis, what's up, sis. And like, she's busy doing stuff and then so she had some health challenges. Pick up the phone. Don't rely on social media. You got somebody's phone number. It's like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. How you doing, bro? How you doing, sis? And by the way, I need some help. So it's like, Boston is small enough. It's a big town. It's a small city. So if you've been here for any period of time, you know somebody that knows somebody, divorced from somebody, baby mama drama somebody, went to school with somebody, goes to church with somebody. And then, we have Pastor Wall and Boston Praise Radio and BNN and Urban Heat and Spark FM, all these other community people that know people. And so it's weird when people see you on TV and then they see you on the bus. It's like, why, how are you on the bus? It's like, I'm taking the bus just like you. I mean, I live
Mhm.
here. I live here, I shop here, I work here, I go to church here. When we were doing registering to vote at Jubilee, there were people from Worcester, from Randolph, from New Bedford, from Canton, from Milton, from all over the place. We had the voter registration sheets for all of Massachusetts, so we could still take their voter registration. And then some people actually, and we put it on Facebook and social media. So some people from other churches were saying, "Oh, I want to do this at 12 Baptist. I want to do this here. I want to do that there." So sometimes it just takes that one spark, that one person, that one seed, and then somebody else says, "Oh, if they can do it, I can do it." So, you can go out there and vote. You can
Yeah.
register to vote. You need to go there and count. If your vote didn't count, they wouldn't be trying so hard to keep you not to vote.
All right,
That's right.
exactly. No,
That's
and,
right.
and it's like, someone texted me the other day. They were a very avid Mayor Wu supporter, and I always had a conversation about issues, not about her personally, right? And they texted me the other day, and they said, "You know what? You were right, right?" And I didn't respond back with, "See, I told you so." I said, "Okay, how can I help you? How can we move forward with dealing with the issues that we've been discussing?" And they were very appreciative that I wasn't coming down on them because we were at different about opinion about the mayor, because it was not personal, and we can't make it personal. Like Commissioner Cox and I grew up on the same street. We knew each other. I was in his house many a times. His sister was a police officer, but our life's experiences are totally different. Even growing up on that
Hmm.
same street, and he sees things from a whole total different lens. He was, "Oh, you don't like him." It's not personal, but I don't think he's the best person for the issues that we're facing right now,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
he thinks, in my opinion, that what happens to us is we bring it on ourselves. And that may be true in some instances, but it's still, we're tasked with dealing with that problem, not
Hmm.
just blaming people for it, because they don't like it when it's done the other way.
Mm. Mm. You know,
Not only,
the tolerance that we have in our neighborhood for other people's apathy. There were some elder black women when I was out there campaigning, and I would ask them. I said, "Well, why do you know, what is it you like about Mary Wu?" "Oh, I just love her. I love her, and I love the baby." And I said, "Okay, so what about her policies?" "I don't know anything about that. I just love her, and I love that baby."
Mm-hmm.
mm-mm.
Great. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now that she's won, you don't see the baby anymore. So no.
That part.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, but no, and then that's where the education piece comes in, because the more you say it during the year, it doesn't, like election time, they think you're attacking who they like because you're bringing up these issues. They can't see past their like. But when you talk to people about, well, okay, you know, like, well, so for instance, quickly, I know we got to go. I said my tenants, for the first tax increase, I held and I ate that cost. Then I said, you know what? Only way for people to understand that they have some skin in this was I started passing that cost on, and I explained to them in the letter that I sent them about the increase is that this is due to the increase in, oh wait, no, yeah, so call City Hall and complain.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I thank God again for Pastor Bruce Wall. A lot of people
Absolutely.
don't know that Gary, Indiana,
Mm.
that is an 80% black city, has not had power for two
Hmm.
weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
And because we
Hmm.
don't own the media and we don't have enough community media connected across the country, we're not realizing what is happening to our people. 10,000 black teachers, educators in Chicago have been pushed out of the system.
Well, how about here in
10,000.
Boston? Bring it home, right? How many have been
540
pushed
people
out
lost their
this year?
jobs.
Okay, that's going to have an impact. You know, that's going to have an impact. You know, I know 2 minutes, so I'm going to defer to you ladies with that. But I want to say, you know, Pastor Wall, that from my understanding, this is going to be his last sermon this Sunday as the pastor
Hmm.
What?
of the church. So, folks, if you can come support this great man who has been a mentor, someone I love dearly, and you want to honor him even more, support this his radio station, his dream, because it's
That's
our
right.
dream as well.
That's right. That's right. I want to thank both of you all for coming in and stepping in and helping me out. I appreciate both of you all. You know, the work is not done.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my friend, God rest her soul, Makia Baker, used to always say, it's a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under.
That should be
But,
a. They should make that into a song.
Ah, God bless
but
you, Priscilla. God
yeah,
bless you,
God
Pastor
bless
Wall.
you
God
too.
bless you, Larry.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Sharon. Let me know. Like I said, I have responded back. So when you get a minute, let's follow up on that.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay.
Y'all have a blessed day. Thank you. Appreciate you all. Love y'all.
You
This is
too.
People Power with Priscilla. We are the people. We have the power.